was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and I'm really excited about today's guest and our conversation because I am an author and I do have several books that I have written, and I have worked on #1 best-selling campaigns, and then now they're on a bookshelf, and sometimes I say to myself, now what? How do I use that book? How do I use that book to generate income, not only on sales of the book, but I spent a lot of money in developing sales pages on my website. And I also spent a lot of money developing the pages that lead from my book to my website and all of the downloads and additional resources that are available to them. So how do we get those books into the hands and have those individuals actually reach out to me and, get to know me, like me, trust me, purchase possibly some of my programs? Well, today we're going to have Pooja Arshanapalli here on our podcast, and you have a book. What now? Right? What do you do now? And I'm excited to have her on the show. And before we get to Pooja, I want to thank today's sponsor of this show, The Adventures of Julie Jones. Are you overwhelmed and overworked with a never-ending to-do list? Do you constantly feel tired because life seems hard and your needs are nowhere near the top of your priority list? As an adventure and breakthrough coach, Julie Jones will support you in a life that is easy, effortless, and most of all, fun. Stop spending time on the have-tos in life and start truly living a life of I get to. What are you waiting for? Take action and go to juliejones.biz and book a free 30-minute Live Out Loud call with Julie Jones. All right, now let's get back to Pooja. And I'm really excited to introduce her. She's the owner of The Novice, where she specializes in helping authors and coaches with positioning themselves as an expertise in their field. In today's digital landscape, having a strong social media presence is crucial for any business looking to succeed and stand out from the competition. Pooja is dedicated to creating customized strategies that position her clients as industry leaders and thought experts in their respective field. Coming out of St. Louis, Missouri, she's crafted engaging content to build a loyal following. She provides coaches and authors with the tools and knowledge needed to thrive on social media. Pooja, welcome to today's show.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's really great to have you here. So I'm sure that comes up a lot in you working with coaches and authors. They think they're going to write a book, and I'll tell you, you write a book to make an impact. And when you do a bestseller campaign, maybe you sell, 400, 500, 600 books. But then after that #1 bestseller campaign's over with, and you've kind of marketed it, what now? Is that like the common thing that you find coaches when you meet them or authors? They're like, yeah, I have books. What do I do with them? Do I just hand them out? Do I sell them? How would you say that you got into doing this and seeing the need here?
So yes, it is a very common problem is when they're wanting to publish a book, whether it is to establish themselves for credibility, to get more speaking engagements, a lead generational tool. But then once they have the promotional material, now what? Because marketing is an ongoing expense, and they kind of have to do it themselves. And it's they have to be consistent about it. And it's pretty hard to generate sales directly from the book solely. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people face. And especially if you self-publish, you're kind of relying on Amazon, the sales on Amazon, and it can work, but it's also a struggle as well to rely solely on Amazon providing the sales for you. So what I help with,
I think that's super dangerous, Pooja, because honestly, they're not out there promoting you. And B, you get very little, like $1, if one of your books is sold. It's a very small percentage. So I would never have a coach or a speaker or anyone that I knew that had a book suggest ever that they rely on Amazon. But you're right. I'm sure a lot of coaches and authors are relying on Amazon to promote that, and they don't. So let's just wake everyone up right now and say that doesn't happen. And the share that you get on that book is so small from the sale of that book. So go ahead.
So I think it's more of like trying to position your book as a lead generational tool and then having to integrate it into other opportunities that you already do. So it's not just, buy my book just to get to know me, but it's more of like, here's a reference tool. I created a webinar, but if you want to know more information, buy my book. So it's not just relying on the Amazon algorithm for people to find you, and you're incorporating it into other opportunities that you already have in what you do.
Yeah, I like that you said that. So you said, create it to be a lead gen for you. So what are some of those ideas that you have on creating it to be a lead gen? So the first one I heard you say was they do a workshop, and then you said you got the information from the workshop, and then the next part of that sales funnel could be, here's the rest of the information that's going to dive deeper in this book as a continuation of that workshop that I did. Is that right?
Correct. And then sometimes people use their book as frameworks of like different principles that they are already teaching or coaching people with. And so you can still use the same principles and be able to have the same principles in other opportunities, such as like podcasting, webinars, but you just don't give everything away. And then you kind of just like lead your audience and make them more interested in what you have to say, because you're providing some value up front before. And then people are more interested to want to learn the rest of what you have to say in the book that you presented.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of coaches actually utilize their books as like workbooks. So they'll utilize the book in their coaching practices. So they might give the book as a value add to, as a bonus value add to a client, or give it to someone as a potential client because they want them to be able to read a little bit more about the substance of the work, right? Especially if it's a workbook. And that might entice them, especially if you follow up with them in them working with you in the future as well. So I've seen that work in several instances for sure. I think having ongoing books that allow you to learn, reflect after every chapter, right? Where you're having to now apply what you've just learned or read back to yourself. And then having some type of system set in place where if someone does purchase a book of yours, that there's a follow-up and a nurturing sequence that connects you to that person so that you're nurturing them through that journey that they're going on with your book.
Right. And I think that it's just a lot easier for people to want to just rely on like just the marketing aspect. But I think also it makes it like long term, like it's a lot easier or a lot more of a easier streamline in the long run to then put it into or integrate it into other streams. I think at first a lot of people may not want to or may not understand, because it does take a lot of work and it takes a lot of time to figure out how to do all of those lead generation, like the step-by-step process of how to get people and how to make it come off like you're not trying to sell people right up front. That can be a difficult process, but it does help in other ways. And it makes it kind of more of like a circular where it's not just like, oh, just buy my book versus like, here are 3 different options for people to guide them to your book. And you're basically educating them on different valuable things that you have done with your services and what you have to offer as a business.
Okay, what would some of those be? Because that totally threw me for a loop right there. So when you're talking about other resources and linear ways to your book, is the book like the center of that? And then there's like a wheel and a spoke. And so those different lines lead them into different programs you have. Does it start with the book, or does it start with a social media post, and then you lead them to the book, and then that leads them again now into other programs or offerings that you may have?
So I think that in general, I would say like initially the book is kind of like the start when people don't know who you are. It's probably one of the most affordable ways to get people interested in like what you do. A lot of people say that it's a business card for your business as well. But I think that there's so many touch points that people have with a service provider or a coach or anyone who does business, that like someone might find you from a webinar or someone might find you from a podcast. So your book is not the forefront of every single touch point of what you do. So it's trying to be intentional of like what type of products you have and making sure that people are hitting multiple touch points when they view a webinar versus just you talking about what you do or providing a specific topic for that webinar, but being able to touch a little bit more so they have more reason to like go on your website or book a call with you or buy a book, etc.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way because as a speaker myself, when I'm on stage, that's always one of the best times for me to sell my books because when I speak, then people want to dive in more into learning about who I am and what I teach and how I can motivate them more, in the book, or give them tips on how they can be seen or be heard or be visible, because my book is just that. It's about being in the spotlight, stepping into the spotlight to expand your influence and attract the right clients. That's the name of my book. So that's what it teaches. How do you do that? How do you expand your influence in all the areas, including social media, stages, your digital footprint on Google, utilizing other people's businesses and leveraging them to promote you, just like today Pooja is here on our podcast, leveraging the notoriety of the podcast and the reach to be able to get her name out there. It's what, it's all of us. That's why we show up on different individuals' platforms, for that purpose. So I love that you said that because it doesn't necessarily need to be the first thing, but it can't be the last thing either. Meaning it shouldn't be something that is never talked about. You did it one time, you got the #1 bestseller, and then now it just sits on the shelf. And I see a lot of individuals do that. Now, you're talking about books that the individual author has written. What would you say about books where those authors and coaches have collaborated in those books? So they're not necessarily the author, and they don't have the intro, and they're not on the back of the book. And, they might just have a chapter or two and have a presence in the book. What would you say to those individuals that are coaches and how they can utilize those books as well?
I would say for someone who has collaborated in a book, one way is to use it as like for credibility that you are a published author and you have you do have a chapter. It's compared to someone who is not a published author, you do stand out in that way, in that regard. I would also use it as a way to tell a story, because even though you have a chapter, you still have a story to tell. And a lot of people connect with stories, and they connect with people as well. So being able to leverage that, stories go way beyond than a lot of people know, compared to just telling about what you do, because stories definitely goes into relatability, and people like connecting with people they trust. And we all know the saying, people go for people they like, know, and trust. This is another way to get people to like, know, and trust you as well.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's something we haven't talked about yet. And that would be consistency. So if, for instance, I have been in 7 books. I've published 3 of them myself, 2 journals and my own book, which I collaborated with some other authors. And then I have done work and collaborated with other authors in their books. And I will tell you, consistency is key. So a big mistake I see, so I would love my listeners to contemplate, to think, are you being consistent in these different books that you're saying yes to collaborate in? So if you're saying yes to collaborate in a book, are you still guiding your brand through that individual chapter or 2 chapters that you're writing? It's so crucial to make sure we're doing that, because if you're writing in one person's book about self-care, and then you're writing in another person's book about marketing, and then you're writing in another person's book about energy healing, these people are going to read your chapters and say, like, who is this person? What do they stand for? I have no idea what they do. See how it can be so confusing? I've seen this happen over and over again, where authors will say yes, and then they start collaborating in a book, and they're writing things that aren't even relevant to their brand. They're trying to, what's the best way to put this? They're trying to mold who they are into the book, rather than staying true to what their services are. Have you seen this, Pooja, in your work?
Yeah. I have definitely seen this. I think when you are an author, you want to collaborate. The thing is to have the messaging, the overall message that you want to put out there, and make sure it's consistent. Whether it's in books, I think in general, if someone goes on a social media post and your messaging is completely off from your website, people would be confused. So the same message applies in different books that you collaborate with, or different books that you publish. Making sure you have a consistent overall message doesn't mean that you can't tell a different story, or you can't tell something a little bit different, but it has to go back to the main mission that you started from.
So true. So true. And I think that means what we're saying is say no to books that don't land for you. I had several women have asked me over the years to collaborate in books with them. And I just didn't connect with the book they were writing, because maybe it was about chakras or energy healing or mental wellness or some of those things. And that really isn't my brand. It's not anything. Could I talk on why mental wellness is so important for us in our businesses? Sure. But again, it's not consistent with my brand. So it's not something that I would want to have a conversation on. And I think we need to choose to work and collaborate with other authors that are in alignment with your message. There's so many books out there that are vital, as we know, to helping other people through problems that they may be running into, whether it's a mother going through her first divorce, right? Or someone who's dealing with people pleasing and is reading a book on how to recover from that, or someone that might be recovering from addiction or whatever it is. We know there are books out there, and we've read all these books ourselves in the areas that we need to grow. I love personal development group books. Pooja, are you a big fan of personal development books?
Yes, I do read a lot of personal development books, but I think for me, it's like there's just so many stories. And just because it's said once doesn't mean that you can't say it again. Or like, I know a lot of people, one of the things that prevent people to write a book is why me, what makes me stand out, all of those things and I think it's some of it is in like just being an imposter of not knowing what to write, but you can still tell your story and people will still resonate with it. It doesn't have to feel like a dime in the dozen type of story where it's so specific. I think that people still relate to many different stories, but what makes it different is because you're telling the story. I've read so many books and they all have similar ideas or same types of ideas, but I still like the books regardless because they're told in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There isn't like I'll use an example. I do workshops and teach on peak performance, high performance, high performers, habits of high performers. It fits my brand, right? Because I'm working with women to get them to their peak performance. So I could name about 40 authors, if not more, just off the top of my head without even going searching, that have created books on that. Now, why would I want to create a book on it, or why would I want to do a workshop on it different than anyone else? It's because my experience, my knowledge, my past, my history, everything, my skill sets, I'm going to share that message a little bit differently and might give different tactics or tactical pieces on things that you can do. But again, you just resonate. We resonate with different authors, with the way they speak, with the way they tell their stories, with the way their past is and how they connect their stories with the subject at hand. And so I think that, I think of an author like Jen Sincero, who is super funny. I don't know if you've read any of her books, but she's really funny. She's super blunt. She's got like the craziest past, and she's just super raw and real. And you have to like that humor of that type of person. I'm sure, like she talks about, she felt awkward at some places because she's just awkward that way. That's the way she feels, right? And so that's kind of what sets her apart, is the way she is, just like the way that Oprah Winfrey set apart, or Mel Robbins is set apart, or, myself or you, Pooja. We are different people. And so we could be teaching on the same subject. And I will tell you, Mel Robbins and Oprah Winfrey have had similar conversations on motivation and getting yourself motivated. Yet I bet that some people don't remember Oprah Winfrey ever talking about that. They only remember Mel Robbins talking about that, because people can only hear, there's certain people that can only hear messages from you. So by keeping quiet and not speaking up, then we're robbing them of that message. And I do think our message is important. And so it's been really insightful learning today how to take your book and really utilize it for all of your other programs that you have, workshops or, boot camps or challenges or whatever that might look like. It's so crucial that we focus on, what do I do with my book now that I've written it? And how do I utilize that ongoing and use it as a business card and have it wherever I go and everywhere I'm speaking, and bringing it even to maybe networking events. I went to a conference a few months back, as a speaker in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I brought 10 books with me. And I brought 10 books on purpose because I wanted to connect very closely with 10 people the whole time I was there, sign the book and give them my book as like a gift, but a way for me to connect with people so that we could continue nurturing that relationship. And that to me was like the first step to nurturing that relationship, was giving them a gift. And it worked really well for me because I had an intention going in that's what I was going to do. So that could work really well for anybody moving into a 3-day conference or a 2-day conference. And we always meet people, right? So why not bring your books and sign them and give them to them? I love when people give me books, and they don't cost us very much, right, to print them. But you're right. You can't rely on Amazon. They're not going to go out there and sell your book for you. Trust me, they're not going to be your marketing department. Yeah. So Pooja, I know you have a PDF, 3 Ways to Attract New Readers and Establish Authority on LinkedIn. And you've got that if they go to your website at thenovicellc.com. Is that right?
Yes. I would say like this is more for people who just want to, this could apply to people who are an author or just starting to be an author who doesn't have a book right now, but it's more on the figuring out the messaging and getting your LinkedIn profile ready, how to create engaging content, just like the basics and different ideas that you can apply today. So you're able to get your message and be able to be consistent.
Okay, good. So if you're not an author yet, but you're maybe you're starting to collaborate with someone of becoming an author, you want to be an author, or you're a new entrepreneur and you really haven't set up your LinkedIn, you're not really sure what your messaging is or how you should be consistent with that message, you're going to be a great candidate for downloading this PDF, and it's the novicellc.com. You can also find Pooja on LinkedIn, Pooja R. Shinapalli. You can find her there. And then you said at the bottom of your website, you have the opportunity for someone to sign up for your newsletter as well so that they can stay connected with you.
Yes.
Yeah, we only scratched the surface today on Pooja. She's worked with my clients in ChatGPT, in really dialing in messaging, and she's just really a hidden gem out there. And so let's not keep her hidden anymore. I think it's time that everyone needs to know who Pooja is, so that she can get out there and work with you and assist you in increasing your social media presence and LinkedIn presence. She had a full-time job in social media marketing. She has a full background in doing this on a regular basis. And so I'm excited that she stepped into entrepreneurship to help more entrepreneurs really dial that in, because I think that's an area, Pooja, that many entrepreneurs struggle with, is working on that.
Yeah, I agree. Also, it's just like very tedious, and there's so many different variables when it comes to social media content creation. So I understand why people are very like afraid of even starting in that process.
Yeah. I totally get it. And a lot of people say, oh, I hate social media. And I say it's here to stay. So hey, change your perspective, flip it upside down, enjoy it, embrace it, and make it your friend. And then that way you'll have a good time with it, because you can have a lot of fun with social media. My husband's birthday was yesterday, and I posted about 5 or 6 times on social media and just told everyone like, hey, he's my favorite person. Here's some photos of him. Follow us for our adventures today. And every stop that we went to, I took a new photo and uploaded something new about what we did and why we went. And then today I'll be posting something about how my mental health is like feeling amazing today. Just having that half a day that we took from noon to 7 and just spent time together out doing things that weren't work. We talked about work, but that weren't work and just had like a fun play day. And it was a lot of fun. And I think that for our mental health, for those of us, especially if you're driven like I am and you're plugged in and working, very intently every single day in your business, that unplugging and having that time in the middle of a week, it's just fun to go out. You'd be surprised, like how many people aren't out in the middle of the week at 2:00, so it was a lot of fun and you feel like you're playing hooky so anyway, Pooja, it's just been a lot of fun having you here on the show. If you guys are interested in reaching out to Pooja, you can also reach her at hello@thenavicellc.com. Of course, her website, thenavicellc.com. And then Pooja, you can find her on LinkedIn as well. Any last words, Pooja, that you would love to leave with our listeners before we wrap up?
I want to first say thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I think when people are scared to take the next step is, I know a lot of people focus on the risks that next step entails, but I want you to think about what are the consequences of not taking that risk and try to move forward with that.
Because the rewards are just on the other side of that, isn't it? Absolutely, it is. There's so many amazing things that could happen versus, not taking the risk. So wonderful way to leave our podcast today. And I want to remind all of our listeners, you're the only you that's ever been. That's right. And you're the only you that will ever be. This is your time. Pooja took the leap. She left corporate America. She became an entrepreneur. What is the leap in your life that you're holding yourself back from? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to get out there and promote your book more? Now is the time to do that. And as she just said, don't hold yourself back with all the negativity. What are the positive things that could happen? And the reward about that is just on the other side of it. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Had a wonderful conversation with you, Pooja. Thank you so much for being here and for all you've done for the LEAP community and for all of you that are looking for more visibility to be seen, be heard, and be visible. Make sure you go to ColleenBiggs.net, click on community, and join the community today so you can be interviewed and be in the spotlight everywhere, all the time, anytime. Again, thank you for joining us today. And until next time, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, where you learned the tools to create a life by design. Remember, you are the only you there is, and you are the only you that will ever be. Be you and be strong, because you are brilliant, and the world needs you at your best. We cannot wait for you to join us again next time.